I'm going to tell you the shocking amount of times the Mayor of London has failed to adequately respond to questions about grooming gangs. Why does the Mayor of London seemingly not know the definition of the statement grooming gangs? Well, this week at City Hall, London's Mayor Sadiq Khan was asked a very simple and straightforward question by London Assembly member Susan Hall. Take a look at this.
I asked you this question last week and you found every which way but not to answer it. Just how many grooming gangs have we got in London?
To avoid any misunderstanding, can she define what she means by that?
Yes, if you look at what's gone on in Rotherham, where there are people taking young girls, grooming them for sex, that is what I'm talking about.
We know in London there are issues about exploitation of young people, but they're not as defined by the member in her definition of what those types of gangs are.
Mr. Mayor, you are fully aware of what grooming gangs are, what we're talking about, because we're talking about them daily in the national press. Your party leader has been discussing them at length in PMQs. The Home Secretary just made an announcement about them this week. But obviously, a clarification is in order, so let me help you. Grooming gangs are organised groups of men exploiting, drugging, abusing and raping innocent children throughout our country. So why, in a time when the country is having a serious nationwide discussion on rape gangs, would the Mayor deflect such an important question as that Londoners deserve the answer to? Is he living under a rock, or was this an ugly attempt to sidestep a difficult and uncomfortable conversation? Multiple reports over the years have alleged grooming gangs operating in London, including areas like Newham and Stratford. The Met Police warned as far back as 2017, a year after Khan became mayor, about children being exploited in London, calling these gangs a significant threat. And yet here we are, still waiting for clear, decisive action. Well, interestingly, the mayor has been pressed on this before, all the way back in 2018, when allegations of grooming gangs in London began to surface. He was asked by an Assembly member, how many girls do you estimate are currently being controlled or enslaved by grooming gangs in London? Well, the response was exactly the same. The term grooming gangs can be interpreted in different ways, his response went. Well, in fact, there's been a shocking 10 instances, 10, where Assembly members have quizzed the mayor directly about this issue, with the response always failing to declare how prolific they might be, pushing responsibility back to the Met Police and often unable to answer what exactly grooming gangs are. It's not hard. And at a time like this, when we know that between 2018 and 2023, there have been multiple incidents reported. For sexual violence and rape, they increased by 14% to almost 20,000. Don't you think the mayor should pull his head out of the sand and show some respect for all those potential victims? The mayor, of course, has come out strongly in his own defence, stating that violence against women and girls is an epidemic and had launched a citywide strategy dubbed the Tackling Violence Against Women and Girls strategy that he heralded all the way back in 2021. Now, look, that clip you saw was pretty damning. I'm joined now by former mayoral candidate and London Assembly member Susan Hall. Susan, look, why don't we get your views on what happened in that clip? I'd love for you to take it away.
Well, basically, most Londoners want to know, have we got these grooming gangs in London? My job as an Assembly member is to scrutinise the mayor and ask him questions. And as usual, he was very dismissive and he didn't want to answer. And that's what happens. And unfortunately, there's not a lot we can do about that because he just gets away with it. I thought my question was very simple. It was a yes or a no. If it had been yes, then we could have explored what we could do about it. You know, I would have then had to go about the fact that the latest budget shows that we're going to lose at least 1,800 police off our streets. We can't afford to do that. But he just would not answer the question. And he is the Police and Crime Commissioner for London. We've got 9 million people in London, and he should damn well ask the questions that are put to him.
Well, look, what is it? I mean, he's had 10 instances. I went back through the records of the General Assembly. 10 instances. He's also, as I said in my monologue there, referred to it as, not being able to define it before. Why is he skipping around this issue? Is there more going on here? Why is Sadiq Khan just not answering the question?
I don't know, and he wouldn't. I asked him last week in a budget meeting, and he wouldn't answer then either. I think the trouble is the media up until now, and Charlie Peters is amazing. The media up until now have shied away from all this. I don't know what Sadiq Khan was expecting me to say yesterday, but if he was expecting me to say what everybody thinks he was, he would then scream racist at me, because that's what he's used to doing. He did that all the way through the mayoralty. I had leaflets going out with racist written across my face all over London, because up until now, the way Labour get rid of right wing, or those of us on the right of centre, get rid of us, is to accuse us of being racist. Well, we've all had enough of this now, and hopefully this will start to stop. And people like Sadiq Khan will have to just stand on their own records, and his is appalling.
Well, we've seen Labour ministers and secretaries of state, condemn what they would call inflammatory language being used by the right, or the far right, as they call many people. Do you think that Sadiq Khan's just as guilty of that by not actually answering and seemingly not having any respect to actually be able to define what a grooming gang is?
Well, yes. I mean, that video or the clip has been viewed millions of times through various different ways. And all the comments underneath, people want to know if we've got grooming gangs in London. To be honest with you, I can't imagine we haven't, given how many places in the country there are. But he should at least face up to it. He's the Police and Crime Commissioner. He is responsible for the Metropolitan Police, and he needs to make sure more of his £21 billion budget goes into the Metropolitan Police, not coming out. They're going to be starved of yet more officers, and God help us all.
Susan, thank you so much. Sorry we're squeezed for time tonight, but thank you so much for coming on. I'm sure this is going to be going on a lot longer. But let's get the thoughts of my panel. We've got political consultant Suzanne Evans, the Director of Centre for Migration and Economic Prosperity, Stephen Wolfe, and journalist and broadcaster JJ Anasobi. OK, JJ, I'd love to start with you. Why do you think Sadiq Khan just can't answer this question? What's the reason?
I think he thinks by avoiding answering, it's going to relieve the pressure and he can just move on. But all it does actually is make it worse for everyone concerned. It makes people who are right of centre think, well, Labour are doing some kind of cover-up here. Sadiq Khan's doing some kind of cover-up. There must be something more going on. But if I'm honest, I used to go to London assemblies. I've been going there for many years, since the days of Ken Livingstone. Ken Livingstone did the same thing. Boris Johnson was the king of equivocation. People would launch questions at Boris Johnson. If he bothered to turn up, he wouldn't answer anything. He would mess with his hair and move on to the next thing. This is normal politics, I'm afraid, in the London Assembly.
Suzanne, I don't know.
Suzanne disagrees.
I hope so, because I feel this is just nonsense, don't you? I mean, he is the Mayor of London. He's the Police and Crime Commissioner de facto as part of that role. Surely he can answer and define what a grooming gang is, and doesn't need to direct that question back to Susan Hall.
I'm absolutely disgusted with him. It's that simple. As Susan Hall said in the Assembly chamber, he knows exactly what a grooming gang doesn't. Anybody, unless they've been living under a rock for the last 10 years, knows what a grooming gang is. This was an attempt by Khan to basically sweep it under the carpet, pretend it didn't matter, close his eyes and hope it'll all go away. And this is exactly why we need a national inquiry, to stop people like him getting away with avoiding this issue. Yeah. I'm absolutely disgusted.
Yeah,
I really am.
And I know that clip, and Susan's great. She was saying that she's had lots of responses. I was talking to her earlier on. Lots of people responding about that clip. Stephen, look, is this the kind of political correctness that's got us into this mess in the first place?
Well, to a certain extent, yes, but it's also the measure of the man. The man shows himself there to be arrogant, indifferent, uncaring about the people that have suffered the mass abuse that they've got. He looks down his nose at other people who are questioning him, not only Susan Hall, but also, I think it's Alec Armstrong from the Reform Party. Wilson.
I'm Alex Armstrong. Not quite there yet.
No, actually, maybe you should. Might actually be able to get a little bit better. But Alex Wilson, who also asked a very pertinent question, and he simply dismissed him. He acts like a mob boss. He acts like, with that, I'm so untouchable that it doesn't matter what you say or what you do. And to a certain extent, he is untouchable. untouchable because of the way that London is structured and the way that he's protected by Keir Starmer. But what we should look at him is say that is our political class. That's why we need change. That's why we must fight against these individuals. And London really needs to remove him to put someone who is genuinely caring.
Stephen, but we had a vote. And Susan Hall, and I like Susan Hall as a person, I like her very much, but her campaign was terrible. She was the only person possibly who could have removed Khan. Londoners spoke and they wanted Khan. Despite the fact that crime's through the roof, despite all the things we complain about in London, they still thought Sadiq Khan was a better choice than Susan Hall. So the people have spoken.
I think we should talk about, is this a general failure? I mean, it's easy to pin this on Sadiq Khan because of his comments. I know they seem very brash. And some people would argue, is it down to him? Can he actually define it? Because there's a lot going into this. So there's rape, there's violence against women, there's child sexual exploitation.
He doesn't care, does he? He's stuck in. He's mayor of London. He's got his job. He's got his knighthood now.
And probably a House of Lords.
And probably will eventually get into the House of Lords if, of course, he doesn't become leader of the Labour Party first, which I suspect he's probably angling for. But people should ask themselves: is this man fit to be mayor? Is this man fit to be an MP? Is he fit to be in the Lords? If, frankly, he can't answer a simple question like that, if he can't define what a grooming gang is, if he honestly doesn't know. If he wants to sweep this under the carpet, how the heck are kids supposed to get justice? If even the man who's supposed to be heading up the police in London refuses to even accept that there is a problem.
Well, JJ, obviously Sadiq Khan launched that massive strategy, the tackling violence against girls and women. He's heralded that. He said that's been really successful. Do you think that maybe it needs more time before those sorts of things can actually work for the police, or is it underfunding? What do you think Sadiq Khan would say if he was sitting here right now?
Police were
nothing.
Police
refused to come here and ask questions.
Police in this country were cut because of the previous government, not because of Labour.
So you blame it on the Tories?
I blame it on in terms of police cuts. In terms of most of our social services, was down on the Tories. I think it is. I think it is. I think it is.
Let JJ finish.
And I do think I think Khan made a mistake today by not saying what grooming gang is. As many politicians previously akin to this couldn't describe what a woman is. What I mean? They tread along the line trying to cater to the left whilst all they're doing is making everyone else extremely angry. But in my home county, the West Midlands, the biggest child grooming gang so far in the history of this country, 21 people, I believe it was, all of them are white people. Their colour and their race was never brought into it. The problem we're having currently, I guess what Sadiq Khan is trying to do there is avoid bringing race and religion into this discussion.
Exactly as your question asked Stephen earlier, it's the political correctness that got us into this trouble in the first place.
Yeah,
I think that's only part of it, though. I think the political correctness is, but it's also about really how those in the elite positions think. They want to hide their own culpability. They want to hide the fact that they did nothing. This is why they had the initial inquiries, like ICSA, which actually said nothing about this. It didn't challenge the individuals who'd committed the wrongdoing. None of them are going to prison. And in these new inquiries, none of them are actually going to be forced to go to be questioned. That's what's wrong.
Listen, I think there needs to be far more powers given to these inquiries. Far more needs to be done, I believe, in a national inquiry. But we'll catch up more about this, I'm sure,